Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Executive summary and financial statements.
The financial statements through the end of March are in your packet. Does anybody have any questions on those? Okay, then the rest of the executive summary is just summarizing new business.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Michael? Second?
Second.
Second, Mo. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. New business. Authorized sale of multiple properties.
Okay, sale of multiple properties. In here. 219 Barrington is a single-family home, listed for $59,000. This buyer will renovate it and flip it to an owner-occupant. 163 Greenland, I need to make a correction here. The list price is actually $79,000. It's been on the market for a couple of months, and we have an offer from somebody who plans to renovate it and live there. 132 Hayden, we have an offer from somebody who will renovate it and occupy the home. 214 Forest, I have another correction here. The list price is $5,000. We have two offers, and the highest bidder plans to occupy this home as their primary residence. 401 Salt Springs was a little chaotic. This is a two-family home that needs a significant amount of renovations. We received 8 complete purchase offers, and we are recommending sale to the highest bidder. They had an escalation clause that pushes their offer up to $123,500.
Wow.
621 Seymour is a buildable vacant lot. It is in an odd location, which is why we think it's not a likely spot for new construction. This woman, Nulinda Garcia, lives right around the corner on Amy Street, and she operates a daycare there. She wants to purchase this land to have play space for the kids.
Okay.
And 118 Fairfield, we need to pull, so I'm sorry for that, but we'll just cross that one out.
Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to authorize the sale of multiple properties.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I should note that's like $350,000 in sales this month, which will do a good job of catching us up.
I also feel like that's higher than usual. As we've been doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but it's a good month.
Okay, B, acquire multiple properties from the city of Syracuse.
A few pages after where we just were, there's a diagram in your packet with a little map. We own a large cluster of properties at the corner of Fayette and Westmoreland already, and we're waiting on one missing piece there to come to us through tax foreclosure. Across the street, kitty-cornered, there's a mini mart that's pretty run down, and I think has several times been shut down with nuisance abatement proceedings. I believe that is currently on the market, and Daniel is looking into what it would take to maybe buy that property. Right next to it is a city-owned lot at the corner of Ellis and Fayette. So if we were able to purchase the mini mart, we could assemble that entire block, that side of the block there. Next over is the Boys and Girls Club. Right next to that is a seizable property that is a former auto repair shop. I've asked CNS to start doing a phase 1 environmental site assessment on that property and the city-owned property right across the street because it used to be commercial as well. So once we have that phase 1 completed, then the city could foreclose on the auto repair shop and potentially deed us their city-owned land at the corner of Crowley and Fayette. So the 2 or 3 properties that we're asking the city for are the 2 that they own outright and the 1 seizable property there on the corner. It's mostly vacant land. There's maybe a 3-bay garage way towards the back of the lot that was the repair shop.
So this is near the park you're talking about, Westmoreland Park, right?
Yes, right across the street from Parkside Commons.
Okay.
We're thinking it would make sense to assemble these 3 or 4 large chunks of vacant land for new construction at some point down the road. Like to encourage some mixed income development in this area.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to acquire multiple properties from the city of Syracuse.
So moved.
So move Mo, second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Contract with City of Syracuse for 900 South Avenue, 2110 South Salina, and 200 Maple.
900 South Ave is a former gas station. We have Johnny Patiller under contract to redevelop that as a Sunoco. 2110 South Salina Street is the Castle or South Presbyterian Church, and 200 Maple is commonly known now as the Bread Factory. All three of these, we have buyers under contract, and they are struggling to close to get the construction financing they need to move forward with their projects. The city had previously awarded all three of these ARPA funding. And at that time, they said only 20% of it could be used for pre-development expenses and the rest would have to go towards capital expenses. So that's largely why these three have been slow in drawing the money down, because they haven't reached the point of incurring any capital expenses yet. But we're quickly approaching the deadline for all ARPA funds to be used and committed.
Sure.
So the city is now willing to let 100% of these funds be used for pre-development, which will be really helpful in all three of these cases, because if they can get all of their drawings done and get their permits approved, then they can close on their construction financing. I had a great conversation with Evelyn yesterday about the castle. Between this funding and some other loans that she has recently secured, they'll be able to do all of their permit drawings that they need so that they can actually close on some financing and move that project forward. We're going to be having a project meeting probably next week with 200 Maple and folks from Neighborhood and Business Development. And we think that Johnny's also pretty close to being able to securing the funding that he needs. We've been advocating to some local banks on his behalf, hoping that we can get that going. So what the city would like to do is to transfer these outstanding balances of ARPA funds, and instead of granting them directly to the buyers, they want to grant them to us so that we could hold them in restricted accounts and only disperse them for eligible expenses as they're incurred.
What's the ARPA deadline?
I believe they want to get this out the door by June 30th.
Any other questions regarding these? Okay. I'll ask for a motion, enter contract with City of Syracuse for 900 South Avenue, 2110 South Salina, and 200 Maple. Motion? So moved. Jonathan, second.
Second.
Mo, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Procure flooring installation of 433 Warner Avenue.
In your executive summary, you'll see that we got two bids, and we are seeking your authorization to hire National Carpet and Flooring, the lowest bidder, to do all the flooring in 433 Warner, which is moving right along, and hopefully we'll be able to get it on the market soon. This would have LVT downstairs and in the bathrooms and kitchen, and then carpet in the bedrooms.
So, any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to procure flooring installation of 433 Warner Ave.
So moved.
So Mo, second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Amend contract to sell multiple properties, redev CNY Housing Initiative.
So this is a nonprofit founded by Ryan
Benz, right.
that they're working with Chetty's Foundation, the Southside Growth Foundation. I'm always messing up that name. They are preparing an application for the block by block program, and they've decided to shift their focus away from Kenmore. So you'll see in the executive summary here, the Kenmore addresses are crossed out, and they've added several addresses on Ostrander. And these two, Salina and Cannon, are on intersections with Ostrander. So it's all kind of one linear chunk of properties. And this is a contract where you do have final approval over the designs that they come up with. They haven't reached that point yet.
Why they move off of Kenmore, you know?
Really not quite sure.
I know that's sort of a dense neighborhood, smaller houses and all that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they decided to do that.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to amend contract to sell multiple properties to redev CNY Housing Initiative.
So moved.
Michael, second.
Second.
Mo, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Enter in funding contract with the City of Syracuse.
So there's $750,000 in the budget for the land bank in this coming year, starting July 1. The draft contract is in the back of your packet. And I just have a couple of typos in here where we're referencing the funding amount from last year. So throughout, it should say that it's for $750,000 and that we're asking for one disbursement up front rather than two, the way we've done in previous years, because we think that we can spend it in this, our fiscal year is 6 months off from the city. So we think we can spend it in our fiscal year, and we don't want some of it dispersed in 2026, if that makes sense. Any questions?
We better vote on this. You're never going to tell what's going to happen.
Right.
You know? Okay, I'll ask for a motion to enter a funding contract with the city of Syracuse. Jonathan, second.
Second.
Mo, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And now we get to our discussion of the public developer.
I have two other items that I want to
Sure.
mention, but I don't know if maybe we should do public developer first. First is good news that the state has finally passed their budget, and it includes $50 million for land banks again, which is great. And again, more than we asked for. So something good is happening behind the scenes that I'm unaware of. But $40 million is in the capital budget for housing expenses, and $10
Did they give
million
us any more AIM money at all to run our city?
Well, no AIM money for the city, but there is some AIM money for land banks, which
Oh.
is amazing. So.
Thinking of yourself.
Right.
As you should.
Yeah.
There's 40 million in capital and 10 million in the AIM, aid to municipalities budget. And that AIM money allows them to offer some really flexible dollars to land banks. So for the past 3 years in a row, we've received $200,000 from HCR just to go towards overhead expenses. And with this new AIM funding, that will likely continue. On the capital side, they are really interested in funding complete projects. So what's been happening is that, AHC will only fund up to $75,000 per unit. AHOP, their new program, will do up to $200,000, which is much better than anything they've offered in the past, but it's still not quite enough to get these homes built. So we've been layering together various programs from HCR to make each house possible for complete new builds. And they don't love that because then they're running a project through our program, LBI, AHOP, and all these others, and they're only getting one deliverable out of it. So they're, with the new 40 million, they want complete projects funded by that program. So it might mean that it's 300,000 to build a new house, but I think that they would prefer that we do things that are more on the affordable end. We talked with them yesterday a little bit about what we're doing with Jim Williams, and that is really projected to only take 50,000 per house. They'll be serving a higher income band than what HCR would normally support, because those are going to be market rate houses. But they are interested in potentially going up to 150% of AMI with this funding. So we could get a lot more units out the door at that higher price point. That's a possibility. They're also talking about maybe doing home improvement grants to existing owner occupants, in which case we would probably take that money in contract with home headquarters to do it because they already do that sort of thing and I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And then they're very interested in what they're calling their cross-mod program and expanding that. So this is the one house that we're building on 139 Maxwell. That's a manufactured home. That's only going to take about $100,000 of subsidy for the factory built. So they'd like to do more of those as well. And it would maybe be more manufactured homes that meet the HUD code, but also maybe more modular homes if we can get them for a similar price point, and those are built to the standard building code. So to be determined exactly. They haven't released the RFA yet, but it's great news that there's more money flowing for land banks, and we're just going to keep trying to bring as much of it back to Syracuse as we can.
Would any of that be helpful for projects like the bread factory that we were voting on earlier?
So the 40 million in the capital budget is really directed towards production of housing units. So there are some housing units in the bread factory. We can talk to them about maybe supporting that part of the project. But I did talk a little bit about how we have a need for commercial as well. And they said some of the older funding that is still not yet allocated could potentially be used for commercial, but not these new dollars. So that's exciting news. And then we also heard on Friday that we were awarded a EPA cleanup grant, which is kind of mind-boggling because I wasn't even sure the EPA was going to be giving out grants this year. We applied for that in the fall, and we were one of the largest awards. So of all the
Wow.
cleanup grants that were awarded, the average was 1.7 million and our award was 3.7 million. And that'll clean up two sites, 541 Seymour, which I think
Good.
people know is the Consolidated Industries building, and 917 Montgomery, which is an old auto repair shop in the Blueprint 15 footprint. We want that building to stay in place. We're trying to do soil remediation on the exterior of the building around it. There's really nothing to worry about under the slab. So we're working with Blueprint 15 on a plan for that. And my goal is to fully renovate that building into kind of a vanilla box that could be used for any sort of commercial, whether it's office, retail, potentially restaurant, although obviously that would require more investment. And find a local business that can start up in that space and hopefully over the long term rent to own. At 541 Seymour, we do not want to save the existing building. It's a mess.
It is.
And it's an industrial building in a residential zoning district. Our plan would be to use the EPA money. The vast majority of this 3.7 million would go to Seymour to demolish the existing building, remove the concrete slab, do soil remediation underneath the slab, and some groundwater remediation as well. And that'll get us to a level where it's clean enough to build 13 or 14 new houses.
It's a huge parcel of land right there.
Yeah, it's
Huge.
about 1.7 acres.
Wow, that would change the whole face of that area right there. That would
Yeah.
be great.
And that's one that we've just been chipping away at. So
I
our
know.
first assessment grant, we did a phase 1, then we got a technical assistance award to do the phase 2. In our last assessment grant, we did the analysis of brownfield cleanup alternatives, and now we're on to our 4th EPA assistance with this site.
Weren't we thinking about putting our offices down there years ago?
Yeah, we were silly.
I seem to remember that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
And now, the public developer update. You all came to the workshop when Paul Williams was in town a while ago, a month ago. I've lost track of time. We've been looking for kind of the ideal housing project for a new build in Syracuse where we could do a public-private partnership. We have found a good candidate. They have all of their permits approved and everything ready to go. They just don't have their financing. It would be a new build for 200 residential units. With us entering the picture and becoming a partner with them, we could make 30% of those units affordable. So 60 units affordable, 140 units market rate. On the affordable side, 40 of them would be affordable to people at 50% of AMI or lower, and 20 units would be for 80% of AMI or lower, and then obviously the rest all market rate. It's about a $76 million project. We are working on the idea of perhaps the city starting their own low-interest revolving loan program to bridge these types of projects, but also the governor just announced that HCR is creating one very similar, and Center State CEO is launching one for a 6-county region related to Micron. So we may be able to utilize one of those instead of the city having to create their own. So out of the 76 million, they can get 57 through conventional financing. They need to bring 8 million to the table in equity, which we'll talk about how we might split that with them. And that leaves an $11 million gap, which is why there's the need for this sort of low interest loan fund. So in the past, they would have done a private equity to try to fill that gap, and they generally want at least a 15% return, and the numbers just don't work right now because interest rates are so high across the board. But we can potentially tap one of these new low interest revolving loan programs for that 11 million. For the 8 million in equity, they have put 6 million into the site so far and would be willing to sell us the land for 5.5, and then they would come up with the rest of the cash. Where are we going to come up with $5.5 million? It's an excellent question. We talked a little bit with HCR on our call yesterday about them potentially using some of their housing dollars to support this sort of thing. If 30% of the project is going to end up being affordable units, I think we could probably get about 1.6 from them. And if we borrow the rest at 5%, then we, over 20 years, our income stream off the project will be enough to cover the debt service. So we're trying to get all these pieces to come together. For the first couple of years, we wouldn't really have much additional cash flow aside from just covering our loans. But years 4 and onward, it would actually generate a good chunk of money each year, and we could put that into a dedicated fund to either put into new projects, the next partnership down the road, or make more than 30% of the units affordable if we need to adjust the mix a little bit. One of the additional questions here is about our tax exemption. So part of the motivation for us to potentially buy the land would be that we would make it tax exempt by owning it. We would probably form an LLC subsidiary to own that land and then turn around and lease it to an LLC that has two members, us and the developer. They would earn a significant developer's fee for actually getting this thing built and doing what they do. We don't have any of those skills. So they would get the project built, they would earn a developer's fee for that. This would be like a 75-25 ownership split. So we would be getting 75% of the net income on the project, using it to pay our debt service. They would get 25%. And around year 5 or 6, they would potentially be interested in selling us the rest of their share so that we would own the building outright. So we need to think about the property tax exemption. So that's one of the big benefits that we bring to the table, but I realize that may not really be politically popular. So
you do a shelter tax, maybe?
potentially. So when Housing Visions does a building that is completely affordable, they're able to enter into a
Shelter
shelter
tax.
rent agreement. Yeah. So that the taxes are based on how much income is actually being generated. I'm not sure if this would be eligible for that in the same way because it's only 30% affordable.
Right.
But we are entitled to 100% exemption. So we can
Sure.
craft whatever formula we think is acceptable, that we agree upon with the city. And the city of Kingston is exploring something like this right now. And they're using a different public authority. It's not their land bank. I can't remember who they're using to do this. But they've adopted a policy like a UTEP policy that just says, here's our standard formula that we're going to use for all projects going forward so that it's transparent. And I'm trying to get my hands on a copy of that so that we can see maybe we want to emulate what they're doing.
Okay.
But we would want to cover at least what the city is getting now on those property taxes, and then take into account, obviously, that with 200 units going in, it is going to be using city services to some degree.
So who's the developer?
So it's an out-of-town group, the Wolverine Group. I can send you some information. On
Yeah. And they've done stuff like this before, or what?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Where's the site, anyways?
East Genesee Street.
Whereabouts?
So you know where the Christian Science Church is there, that round church across from Foreman Park?
Oh,
It's that site.
Project's been in the works for a while.
Which is great because it means they're all ready to go. They've done all the the difficult work of getting the permits approved and everything.
it'd be nice if it was Kennedy Square.
Yeah. Now, is that state-owned land or is that core?
No, that's state-owned land.
Okay.
It's, like the Harrison House.
I would hope that they would be putting that out to bid soon. I mean,
What
I've
do you
heard,
think? What do you guys think?
I think they're waiting, 'cause they would have put it out, a while ago if they were gonna put it out, just
Yeah.
like Harrison House, the same thing, they know there's a need, but they're still
Yeah, it's some.
sitting
I
on
mean,
it,
maybe our state representatives should get, because it's like ridiculous. There's people bidding who want to bid on that land too,
yeah, I don't understand why they wouldn't.
and they're always they're waiting for state money to do something, I guess. I don't know what their motive would be, not to do something to that property. Because that's desperately needed for housing, obviously.
So we have a lot more research to do, but I will keep you guys posted as this hopefully comes together.
I do want to applaud the, creativity, like the willingness to look at all these different buckets and figure out a way to make it work. So often it's like, it doesn't work. And it seems like you guys are like, it doesn't work this way, let's try this way.
Not with the land bank.
No one need that.
Not with the land bank.
We need that. We
You
need
shake
that.
every tree,
Yeah,
that's it.
that's good.
It is good.
It's vivacious.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything come before the board?
I
You
was
got
just
something,
wondering
Jonathan?
how the pace of foreclosures is going. I'm gonna ask that every month.
We haven't gotten anything new in a while. When was our last closing? March?
We were told we were getting a very large batch. And I have
Yes.
yet to communicate with the city on why it's so large. I'm trying.
We may get some in June. We were told that there would be a batch of 80 coming in May or June. It's definitely not happening in May at this point.
Right, and we don't really want 80 all at once. Ideally, we like to spread, it's a challenge for Caitlin and for all of us to do 80 at one time,
Mhm.
rather than spread out a little more evenly.
And just to get them all recorded at the courthouse at
Oh,
once. They have to do final title searches on all of
It's
them.
difficult for everybody in the process to do 80 at once. I think the most, if you turn the clock back a decade, I think maybe 50 was our, somewhere around 50 was our record.
Yeah.
But it's challenging. So ideally, you want a steady flow regularly of a reasonable number.
20 or 30 a month would be fantastic.
I don't have any update.
Yeah, so we don't have a date set on this large group. And the last I heard from the law department, it may actually end up being smaller anyway.
Oh,
So,
well, you hear,
but.
you get a phone call back, I don't.
Oh, boy. Remains to be seen.
Yes, nothing changes if nothing changes. So anyways, anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, ask for motion to adjourn. So, second,
Sorry.
okay, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you.